Hello everyone, my name is Nick and in today's video I'm going to talk to you about movies that all artists should watch. Obviously these are my opinions and you may share some of them, you may not, and that's fine, but please leave any films that you think I should have spoken about that I didn't in the comments below so we can create a big list of film that we should all watch in times where we probably have more time to watch films than ever. These films are all from post-2000. Now that's because there are obviously so many films I could have spoken about, but I had to narrow it down somehow, so that's how I've done it. And I've tried to do a mixture of films that you may have heard of, films that you probably haven't heard of, because I want to give some suggestions of things that you probably haven't seen. So yeah, so if you enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. And yeah, let's just get straight into the list. Okay, so this is going to be completely spoiler free, so you don't need to worry about anything like that. And sorry if I look down, I'm just looking at my notes that I've got in front of me. So, first film, At Eternity's Gate. This film, which is 2018, I believe, is all about Van Gogh. This film, with the cinematography, is done by Benoit Delhomme. There's a lot of shots of close-ups of painting, which is really cool and good to see. But also, it's kind of, the awareness of the camera is really interesting. Like the shots, you're almost sort of brought attention to the camera. And almost the fact that it kind of feels somewhat documentary style. I mean, it's not, it's fiction, it's narrative. Obviously, it's based on his life. But the way that the camera kind of moves and the way everything's shot is so well done and so kind of thoughtful and quite kind of a representation of Van Gogh's sort of sporadic, sort of erratic deterioration, I suppose. Each shot looks like a painting. It's so kind of beautifully shot. It just kind of makes me want to like go outside and paint. Obviously I can't really currently, but yeah, you know what I mean, once this is all over. So yeah, first film, At Eternity's Gate, definitely one to watch. Okay, so the second film on the list is actually a documentary called Finding Vivian Maier. This documentary follows Vivian Maier, who was actually a nanny in America in the kind of 60s, 70s. It wasn't until after she died in sort of late 2000s, and this guy kind of at an auction found all of her photography and all of her film negatives, and it wasn't until after she died that she's blown up into this massive kind of success. The documentary is so interesting because it features clips from people who she used to nanny, kind of conflicting views that people had on Vivian, who by the sounds of it was such a mysterious person. Like there's still so much that we don't know about her. It's such an interesting documentary, and her photography, like she does street photography, and it is so captivating, and I love her photographs, and so I think you should definitely check out this documentary. Okay, so the next film I'm going to talk about is If Beale Street Could Talk, directed by Barry Jenkins. Now he also did Moonlight, but I had to pick one, and so I've chosen Beale Street. The film follows an African-American couple, Tish and Fonnie, in 70s Harlem. Fonnie is accused of rape, which he didn't commit, and it kind of follows their relationship and their families throughout the course of the film. Now, this film is actually beautiful. Like the cinematography, James Laxton, he is a genius when it comes to the camera. Things like they break the fourth wall, and it's not done in a cliche or kind of cringy way. It's done in a really kind of intimate and immersive way for the viewer. Also the production design, Mark Friedberg, who recently did Joker, creates this such kind of immersive, you know, environment, and it's one of those films where the production design and cinematography really goes hand in hand, and it's why the film is so stunning. And it probably has one of the best recent scenes in film. Oh, that's a bit of a statement, but I'm gonna stick with it. With Regina King, who plays the mother of Tish. It's the scene with the wig. You know what I mean? If you've seen it, you've got to watch it. You've got to watch the film, even if just for this scene. Like, it's actually phenomenal, and she's so deserving of the Oscar. This film, Beale Street Could Talk, Cinematography, production design, absolutely beautiful and stunning film. Definitely give that a watch. So the fourth film I'm going to talk about is Frida. Frida follows Frida Kahlo during her life, who obviously was a very important artist of the 20th century. And this film is so kind of so stylized. Often transitions go from sort of like paintings into live action, as kind of transitions between scenes. I feel that this film in itself is such a kind of pays homage to her work, and it is very stylized, and obviously she was a surrealist, and this film can be quite surreal, especially sort of the ending, and so I feel it's a really kind of good and kind of true kind of respect to her as an artist, and it's really well acted. Frida, definitely a film to watch. Next film, Us, directed and created by Jordan Peele. Now, Jordan Peele is such a legend, and he's probably my favourite filmmaker and director. He did Get Out as well, which equally I loved, so watch that as well. But for me, Us was such a good film. He is basically a narrative genius. He uses real life and truth as kind of a base and a stimulus to create the story from. In my artwork, I love inspiring things by true events and things, because I think, you know, history and life is the best sort of source for inspiration. And so he takes the Hands Across America campaign and twists it into this narrative that follows a family who basically encounter their doppelgangers. If you haven't seen the film, it probably sounds a bit odd, but watch it, and it's honestly, it's done so well, and it's not cliche or cringy at all. The way that it's just written is so well crafted. The soundtrack is Michael Abels, and it's so good. Like, the Get Out soundtrack was good, but I just think the Us soundtrack is so good. Like, it's so atmospheric and so cool, and the acting, like the cast on this is really well cast. I'm not gonna lie, Lupita, she got snubbed in awards. In my opinion, she definitely should have got nominated for an Oscar. She is incredible in this film. This is probably one of my favourite films of 2019, so maybe I'm a bit biased by including it on this list, but there's definitely a lot to learn for a creative person. So the next film is Adaptation. This film is actually mind-boggling. Like, it's directed by Spike Jonze. It's so meta, so it's about the writer of the film, Charlie Kaufman, is in the film, and it's about him writing a script for a film based on a book called The Orchid Thief. It's so meta, and even thinking about it now, it actually kind of makes my brain hurt a bit. But the presentation of artist block is so realistic and so well done that it's definitely a film that you'll relate to as a creative person, and one that you should definitely watch for that, you know, seeing the ways in which they kind of struggled, because it is so accurate and quite funnily accurate in points. It's also such an unexpected film. Like, I could not have predicted what happens in that film. Like, it really took a direction which I just wasn't expecting it to. So it definitely kind of keeps you intrigued. Also, for any screenwriters out there, it features Robert McKee, who is a famous kind of film critic, and he talks about kind of the story structure and writing story. Honestly, it's such an interesting and just mind-boggling film that you definitely need to give it a watch. So this next film is one that you probably haven't seen. It's on Netflix, and it's called Blue Jay. It stars Sarah Paulson and Mark Duplass as two people who were kind of childhood sweethearts, and then they reconnect. And it's in black and white. And I know there's many great black and white films, like recently The Lighthouse is another great one to watch. But I think what kind of stuck out to me about this is that it was shot over 7 days. And for me, that's just really inspiring, and, you know, it makes me want to go out and shoot film and shoot my own kind of like short film, or quite, you know, impressive for a film to be able to do. It's a role that we don't often see Sarah Paulson play. You know, the script itself is quite surprising, and there are kind of sad moments, and it is a solid kind of well-written drama, I think. And although you won't see it on these big lists of films that you have to watch and, you know, the best films of all time, I think it is an important film, to me anyway, for giving me that inspiration and making me want to create my own kind of moving image work. So Blue Jay, check it out. So the next film I'm going to talk about is Portrait of a Lady on Fire, or Portrait de la jeune fille en feu. This film can probably be said to be a masterpiece. It follows a painter, so there's a reason to watch it anyway. The cinematography, I know I've probably talked about cinematography a bit, but it's so painterly, and so the film itself feels like a painting, and it's so well crafted. Just all of the elements of this film together work so beautifully. It's kind of become quite famous for the stare and this kind of eye contact and looks that they have in the film. And actually, as an artist who does quite a lot of portrait painting, I found that really useful, because I think there's a tendency, you know, when you paint a portrait to just kind of, if you take a photo or whatever and then you paint the photo, and I think even if your subject looks like it's not doing that much, the look and the emotion behind just the look in this film, I think is so inspiring to be able to incorporate into kind of portrait painting or photography or whatever, as that sort of deeper meaning, and to be able to have kind of narrative to your work, which is something that I find so important about finding narrative to work. And so this film has been so inspirational and so great for kind of drawing from that kind of stare and everything. An amazing film that you definitely need to watch. So the 9th film I'm going to talk about is La La Land, directed by Davinci Resolve. I love this film, and I've seen it like 3 times in cinema, which I never normally do. And it follows Mia, who is a struggling actress in LA. I resonate with it a lot because I'm also an actor. As a creative person, I think you really can identify with her in the film, and this kind of struggling to live as a creative person and as an artist, and trying to, you know, find your way in a very crowded industry. And so it is a very realistic film, which links into the ending, which obviously I'm not going to spoil. This realism is really what's good about this film, and Davinci Resolve does it so brilliantly, kind of contrasted to this cinematography, which is very colourful and reflects that sort of, you know, dream LA life, you know, Hollywood, and kind of an homage to Singing in the Rain and those kinds of kind of more old school musicals. So it kind of does a really good job at contrasting this sort of like the dream and the reality. And this kind of reality of an artist struggling is definitely a reason why you should watch this film. 10th film on the list is The Invitation. This film is on Netflix, I believe. It's a sort of horror thriller type film, but it's done really well. And it's about this sort of dinner party that happens. There's this guy and his kind of current girlfriend goes to his ex-partner's kind of very rich house in sort of like kind of the Hollywood suburbs for this meal, and then things kind of get weird and creepy without giving anything away. This film is so suspenseful, like it literally keeps you on the edge of your seat throughout the whole film, and that's why I wanted to include a film like this on the list. And the ending, obviously you're not going to spoil it, it's really creepy, and I think one of the best kind of horror type film endings in kind of recent film history, that you can really learn a lot in terms of a kind of like a slow burn and kind of making an audience feel kind of uncomfortable. The 9th film on the list is Her, written and directed by Spike Jonze, who also did Adaptation. Now this film is set in sort of like a near sci-fi like future in Los Angeles in LA, and follows this Theodore Twombly, who is a guy who ends up falling in love with his operating system, his OS. This film is a really kind of interesting take on, I suppose, quite a common type of film, mainly the production design. K.K. Barrett, I personally think it was snubbed of awards and things like that. It really finds that balance between narrative and visuals as a way of enhancing your kind of emotional connection to the character. Her, definitely recommend. The 12th film is one that may probably have seen, but Marriage Story. This came out, you know, this last year. It's on Netflix. It's a Netflix original. And it's shot on 35mm film. Like, it's got this great kind of nostalgia feeling to it. It's about, you know, a couple who are going through a divorce, and they're filming relatively mundane, you know, scenery and apartments and flats and things like that. But it's got this great feel to it. But also the production design is really, really aids that. It's another one of those films like Beale Street where the production design and the cinematography work really well together. Like, even there's a scene in Adam Driver's character's apartment that he gets, which is just, it's kind of white walls. Normally, you know, like a rule in filmmaking is you don't have white walls, but it's so effective, and the acting is next level. Like, I think Adam Driver should have won something for this. The use of voiceovers as well is really interesting, and so it's a really kind of, I think, a fresh take on this sort of, you know, divorce style family drama. So if you haven't already, check it out. It's on Netflix, Marriage Story. Last film on the list is Loving Vincent. If you haven't seen it, you need to see it. So this is the first ever hand-painted animated film. It's about Van Gogh. It kind of follows his life, similarly to At Eternity's Gate. It's completely painted, hand-painted, and it's made up of 65,000 individual oil paintings, which actually, when you think about it, that's absolutely kind of mind-blowingly crazy. And you sort of forget that it's an animation. It's so beautiful. This film, honestly, I mean, it is one of a kind, and one that definitely, specifically if you're sort of a painter, you need to watch. It's absolutely kind of awe-strikingly brilliant. So yeah, Loving Vincent. So there we are. There are 13 films that all artists should watch. If I didn't talk about maybe your favourite film or any films you think I should have spoken about, leave them in the comments below. Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe for more new art, film photography content. And yeah, make sure to give the video a thumbs up, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time with another video. Bye.